If somebody told me I could have any movie made and pick the director, high up on that list would definitely be Jojo's Bizarre Adventure, directed by Takashi Miike. We got one. This is Jojo's Bizarre Adventure, Diamond is Unbreakable, Chapter 1, directed by Takashi Miike. So, Diamond is Unbreakable is the fourth arc in the long-running JoJo's Bizarre Adventure manga series. So, that being said, if you want some backstory into the JoJo world, I highly recommend you check out the link on the bottom of the screen. It's a wiki page, and you can look at the first 3 arcs of this story. Begins with Phantom Blood, Battle Tendency, and maybe one of the more popular arcs, Stardust Crusaders. Read through the overview of those arcs if you want some backstory into what is the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure world. There are currently 8 arcs in this series, and the 8th one is ongoing today. JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is one of the highest selling manga series of all time, and Diamond is Unbreakable is a very popular arc. This review, as with all of my reviews, I'm going to do my best to avoid any spoilers for this film and just talk about what I liked, what I didn't like, and overall would I recommend this movie. Diamond is Unbreakable follows the manga very closely. It takes place in this small seaside town called Moriacho, and it's got this weird Mediterranean vibe to it. It's supposed to be this up-and-coming, bustling new city in Japan where everyone wants to live. But there's some crazy things happening in this town. People are disappearing. People are dying in horrible ways, like their insides exploding for no apparent reason. So it's very peculiar. And Detective Ryohei is on the case. He's an elder policeman, longtime policeman, who's given up a lot of promotions to kind of stay working the streets where he is close to the people, and he feels like he can do his best to, keep the peace. So he's working really hard on the case. Now, at the same time, we learn of this boy named Koichi, who has just moved to this town, and he's in high school. Pretty nerdy, pretty shy, keeps to himself, but he's very optimistic. Of course, a boy like this, he's going to run into trouble with some bullies, which happens on his second day of school. Luckily for him, at the same time, there's another boy there. His name is Josuke, and Josuke is surrounded by girls, and he's got this real cool vibe to him. He doesn't really care, but one thing he does care about is his hair, and his hair is very interesting, to say the least. So one thing that he does not tolerate is anyone saying anything bad about his hair. And those bullies learn that the hard way. And so at this point, Koichi, since he's there at the same time, sort of sees this guy and goes, okay, I need to stay around that guy, kind of my protector. It sets up their relationship for the movie, and they're going to need to partner up because some wicked things are happening. There's a guy going around this town with a bow and arrow, so he's building kind of this group that Josuke and Koichi are going to get involved in and try to bring an end to. So it's a pretty bizarre story, which is very fitting for the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure universe. So one thing that you should know going into this movie, starting from the 3rd arc, the characters in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure have the ability it's called a stand, and characters that have the power of a stand can pretty much have this avatar come out of them, and it has kind of its own personality, its own name, its own unique abilities, and often they are pretty awesome fighters. So these stands are good. Some people use them for good and other people use them for bad, obviously. So the stands often fight each other, and the users have some strange motives. We're not really sure all the time, But a lot of the fun that comes from the JoJo's Bizarre Adventure story, starting from the third arc, are these stands and learning who the stand users are, what their stand ability is. Sometimes we see the stand before the user, so who is the user? There's a lot of things that we uncover, and it's pretty fun because a lot of the stands have really, really unique abilities. And in this movie, you're going to see some very unique stands. Also, in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure is the story of this family dynasty, and Josuke is part of this lineage, so he's very important and his stand is very powerful. Takashi Miike is no stranger to comic and video game adaptations. He's done a whole host of them. Some of my personal favorites of his video game comic book adaptations, Like a Dragon from 2007, where he adapted the PlayStation franchise Yakuza to the big screen, and I was very impressed with how he adapted that. I thought that was kind of a sleeper of sorts. Crow Zero was based on a manga which I didn't read and I wasn't familiar with, but I thought the movie was excellent. And his most recent, one of his most recent, Blade of the Immortal, was also based on a comic. So this is a guy who's shown that he's very capable of bringing what would initially seem sort of unfilmable to live action. Unfortunately, this one sort of let me down, especially because Miike was at the helm. I expected a lot more. There are definitely moments where Miike's directorial style shines, but it's often through this really sort of dense fog of studio control that seems to always be hovering. We are going to see some really cool action sequences with these stand battles, especially one with this one stand called Aqua Necklace mid-film. It's pretty awesome to watch. So that is one of the highlights of the movie for sure. So while that battle is really cool, others in the movie, not so much. There's a lot of dialogue that happens mid-fight, which is okay. It's very similar to the comic, but this just wasn't fun. It just wasn't fun to listen to, and that was mainly due to the sore lack of character development in this movie. Our main character, Josuke, for almost half of the movie utters one or two lines, and he's very apathetic. He doesn't care about anything. He's just there. I mean, he looks cool, but there's nobody home, it seems like. When he starts to really come into his hero role, a lot of the drama, a lot of the weight that's supposed to be there is just gone. He's just there and he does his thing. However, the villains in this movie are pretty well done, and they are not just killing for killing's sake, and they have their own motives. They've got a pretty good backstory that's fleshed out almost, actually a lot more than our main characters. So I think the highlight of this movie was the detective Ryohei, played by Jun Kunimura. He just brought his A game, and you might have seen him. He's got a cameo in Kill Bill. He was in Audition. He just was amazing in this, and I felt more from him in his small screen time that he gets than I did from the main character overall. Also, it was kind of weird. They introduced another character that's going to probably be in later chapters. It's a girl at school. She's sort of the hot, possibly love interest for Koichi. She's in the beginning and then kind of vanishes. She's played by Nana Komatsu. I saw her in The World of Kaneko, which she was awesome in, and she was just very underused in this. So I get that she's there to set up for sequels, but do something more than just show your face and pretend like you're a big character. So overall, Diamond is Unbreakable. Looks great, sounds great. It just isn't that great. Probably due to the character development. I think maybe as a entire set, when all of the chapters are completed, looking at it as a whole, might judge it differently. But as a part, it just is not enough. It was really missing a lot of the quirky humor that you do see in the comic. And so with very little backstory, any newcomer to the JoJo world, I caution you, don't go in with too high expectations, and you probably will have a pretty decent time, I imagine. I rate this movie a 6 out of 10 good, and I do weight that a little bit for fans of the director and the comic. Other than that, I am looking forward to Chapter 2. This does end with a pretty good cliffhanger, and I do hope that Miike is a little bit more unleashed and free to do his thing in the next chapter. So whether you were a fan of the original comic or not, I'm curious of your thoughts on this movie, and if you're looking forward to Chapter 2 or not. So please leave a comment down below, and I'll see you guys on the next Movie Beat review.
おい、今俺の頭のことなんつった？